Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. Today we're going to talk some more about the Royals' slow start, the opening of the NBA playoffs with their play-in tournament, and a
Yeah.
little bit more NFL offseason news with Odell Beckham signing in Baltimore and how that impacts the league and Lamar Jackson's um, possible being happy and coming back to the team. We'll talk about that a little, but we'll start today with the Royals. They're off to a slow 3-9 start. Cause for concern or just a slow start? What do you think?
I am it's I think it's a cause for concern right now because nothing the Royals are not hitting terribly well. Their starting pitching has been okay. Their relief pitching hasn't been good. Their batting hasn't been great. I don't think their fielding has been great either. They're just they've kind of just, you know, struggled in most aspects of the game. Sometimes that's because it's early in the season, but I think if you're a team like the Royals that are not expected to do that well, it really, really hurts if you have a bad start because
Yeah,
um, that way they're only going to be behind everybody, and then they're not going to really be able to catch up again. Probably they have if like so they were 9-3. I would say they probably still aren't going to win the division, but at least they have that 6 game cushion, and then they can be kind of bad like the Royals typically are, and then they just kind of 12 games it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's uh a, a 15th of the season already, and so it's a long stretch, and um it's maybe 16th of the season, but it's a decent chunk, and I think I was thinking the Royals were going to turn it around in San Francisco. They had a bad start in the first 2 series to the Twins and the Blue Jays. They only won one of those games.
good teams though.
Yeah,
They
good
and
teams,
they got
but
shut out 3 times in those first
yeah,
seven.
and it was at home. You think you play better at home, but then they go to San Francisco, maybe trying to avenge their 2014 World Series loss, and they won 2 out of 3 when they probably should have won 3 out of 3.
Probably. But
And
they won the first 2 games and was looking a little better, at least anyway.
but the last loss seems to have sent them into another mini slump since they haven't played particularly well in Texas the last couple of days. So
They got
I am
blown out yesterday. They probably should have also won tonight's game, but did
yeah.
not.
So I don't I guess it's not really cause for concern, but you kind of um it's one of those things where you would say, well, you'd at least want them to have a decent start and kind of not be out of the division
Yeah,
in April, and that's a
not in a
possible,
giant hole anyway,
and
right?
that's a possibility because they're already 4.5 games back, which isn't that much to make up, but it's they're one of the worst 3 teams right now in the American League,
Yeah.
along with Detroit and Oakland. So I'm not. I'm a little. I'm disappointed. Again, it's still early, so maybe I'm just being more pessimistic than I should, but partly because historically, when the Royals have a really bad start, they have a really bad team, and
Right.
it's not like one of those teams that I think maybe the 2013 Royals were a little bit of an exception when they had a bad start and then they almost made the playoffs.
Right.
Uh, and then they kind of followed through the next 2 years and were really good. And
Well,
even
they
24,
during that stretch was when they would turn it over to the young kids late in the year. They would do really well, and then Dayton Moore would add a bunch of free agents in the offseason, and they'd start not with the young kids again, but with the old guys, but a new crop of old guys, and maybe one of the young kids back in there. But
yeah.
well, like whatever momentum they seemed to have with the certain group, they wouldn't didn't carry over at all into the next season.
Yeah, that's how
This
it
year they kind of ended with the the previous season ended with the young kids, and this year has also started with the young kids, but it seems like the old pattern has resurfaced of not being off to a good start.
Yeah, it reminds me of those unfortunately those 05, 06 to like 2010 Royals, that really bad stretch, following the kind of mirage of a 2003 season in
Yeah.
the early Dayton Moore years. Um, but it's still early. I think, if Matt Quatraro and Quatraro and the other guys that came from Tampa can use some of that Tampa magic that uh,
Yeah.
seems to have left them,
Well, do
they
do
could
you
maybe
find it
turn it around.
strange though, very very quickly? Matt Quatraro has been out with it for a few days after having been
Right,
down
COVID.
with COVID. So is it strange that Paul Hoover actually has more wins than Matt Quatraro has as a manager
It's a little
for the
strange, but
Royals so far?
I guess there haven't been very many games. So like one has two. I think one Hoover has two and Quatraro has one. So like
Yes.
it's a little sad that Quatraro only has one win, but
Yeah.
um, there haven't been a ton of games. So I would guess that Quatraro will wind up with more than wins than Hoover, but
Yeah.
I guess you never know. But this is yeah, but
It's
it's
just
kind.
really strange having a new manager and then 2 weeks in the bench coach has more managerial wins than the manager has, right?
Yeah, and this is one of those things that do you think because the Rays are off to a splendid start, and both Matt Quatraro and um, uh, Paul Hoover are coming. You came from the Rays, right? I think Hoover came from the Rays too,
Yep.
and so like they are both gone. And it seems like since they left, the Royals they haven't won much, and then the Rays have won everything. They're 11
And
and 0
lost,
right
yeah.
now,
Undefeated.
and maybe by Thursday they'll be 13 and 0, which would tie them for the best start in Major League history. Do you know the teams that uh, went 13 and 0 and how they did in the uh,
Full
during that
season.
season? How they finished the season?
I would assume that both was it more than one team that was 13 and 0?
Two teams.
Single
Both
team?
were 13 and 0 in the 1980s.
Oh.
Ironic.
I'm gonna assume they both made the playoffs though, because that usually that doesn't
Okay.
disappear if you win 13 in a row.
So one was an American League team and one was a National League team, but both of them are now National League teams.
Oh,
The National League team that
no.
was originally a National League team was the 1982 Braves
Okay.
with
Must have been the Brewers then for the
Bob,
other.
yeah, Bob Horner, I guess, and Dale Murphy, and I don't know who was also on that team, but they were 13 and 0. The Braves would go to finish 89 and 73, and they won the National League West that year, but they lost in the LCS
Okay.
against I think St. Louis Cardinals won the '82 World Series, so they would have Cardinals beat them in the playoffs. And then the Brewers, they had a good season. They finished 91 and 71, but they were actually only third in the AL East. Um, I don't know who won the AL East that year. I'm sorry, I don't have the 1987.
They were in the East that year.
Yeah, the Brewers were in the East. Um, yeah, the Tigers. Oh yeah, the Tigers won that year. In 90, they were 98 and 64. The Blue Jays were 96 and 66. So they had a good team for a while with Lloyd Mosby and George Bell and teams like that and players like that. Tony Fernandez, Joe Carter wasn't on the team yet at that point. But some good Jesse Barfield, good outfielders, good players. Um, and the Tigers were still kind of the same team that they were with Kirk Gibson and Alan Trammell and Lance Parrish that they were in the 1984 season uh, when they actually won the World Series, and they had the best start of any baseball team through its first 40 games.
Really?
Do you care to guess what their record was through 40 games?
I'll say 29 and 11.
You are well under. They were 35 and 5
Wow.
through 40 games. 35 and 5. So they won 7 out of 8 games for a quarter of the season.
Wow.
And they ended up winning 100 and how many games? 104, 108 games, something like that. 104 games. There were 104 and 58, but they were never not in first place. Right.
Wow.
They started out the first three games tied for first place, and then by April 7th, they were up a half game, and they never looked back. When they were 35-5, they were up 8.5 games on May 24th. And then they kind of went to a slide where they lost three straight. But it didn't really matter. They cruised, and then they won the ALCS against the young Kansas City Royals. They swept the Royals, who were the Western Division champions, in a kind of surprise with kind of young pitching, helping lead the way, like young Brett Saberhagen, Mark Gubza, Bud Black, Charlie Leibrandt, and of course George Brett's still playing. But in the universe in '85, the Royals would win. But the Tigers that year, 35-5.
Wow.
So
Impressive.
their first 20, they were 18-2 in their first 20 games, and they were 17-3 in their next 20 games. And both and those 20, and so 18-2 is tied for the best 20 game start. If they had started 17-3, they would be tied for the second best 20 game start. So they have two of the best, probably 20 game uh,
Stretches.
stretches.
But one of those was the start of the season, though.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Both of them were the first two. And
Okay.
they kind of just were steady after that. But they had a really solid team. That was Lance Parrish. Lou Whitaker was on that team, of course. Alan Trammell. A very young Howard Johnson was also on that team. Chet Lemon, Kirk Gibson, Darrell Evans. They even had several sort of part-time players who had OPSs of 125 and above.
Really?
Yeah, one of those being future Royals first base coach Rusty Kuntz. Kuntz hit 168 at bats, 2 home runs, only 22 RBIs, which is why he didn't play that much. But he had 286 batting average, 393 on base percentage, 414 slugging. So like a lot of those bench guys had crazy on base percentages, and I think if it were a different era like today, those guys would have played in front of the starters, and that team would have been even better than it was because so like if they had kept up that um, so they had Johnny Grubb, who was a DH. He only had 216 at bats, but he had a 395 on base percentage, 131 OPS. But he was not the full time DH. That was veteran Darrell Evans. Evans had 16 home runs and 63 RBIs, so he got to play a lot more because he also had a bigger name and more RBIs. But like he only had a 106 OPS. Instead, Rusty Kuntz had a 125 OPS.
Is that OPS plus or is that
OPS
OPS?
plus, OPS plus. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, OPS plus. Yeah. Although the outfield is pretty good, I guess he probably would have started maybe in front of Larry Herndon, who had only a 104 OPS plus. But Kirk Gibson had a huge year. Uh, but yeah, all of those guys had really good on base percentages. They walked a lot.
Those weren't really stats that were even, praised in that era, though.
No, but it seems
So,
like
yeah.
maybe those Tigers teams were on something because like um, Kirk Gibson was at 282 batting average, but 363 on base. Alan Trammell, 314 batting average, 382 on base. Lou Whitaker was 357 on base. But then like compared to like those backups, Rusty Coots had a 393, John Grubb 395. They had an outfielder named Rupert Jones who had a 137 OPS plus, and he had a 346 on base percentage. And he only batted like 29 games. So like it's 79 games. So like yeah, it's a little bit interesting how those teams were were valued. Their pitching staff was decent, but for the era, I would say not great. Jack Morris was their top of the line starter. He only had he had a 3.60 ERA the whole year, but that's not that great for the 80s. 3.6. He was 1911. Um, and I guess Tiger Stadium was a small stadium, but they had a couple of very good relievers in Willie Hernandez and Aurelio Lopez. Um, I don't know if you remember Willie Hernandez, I believe, um, won the MVP that year in 1984. That was back when closers won. He won both the Cy Young and the MVP in 1984. Isn't that
Crazy.
crazy? Yeah, like so let me look at it. I'll show you his stats. Okay, so he had a 9-3 record, 1.92 ERA in 140 innings. That's a lot of innings for 1.92 ERA though. Um, he had a 204 ERA plus, a WHIP of 0.94, and
That's a
you know,
ridiculous ERA plus.
yeah, 204. Yeah, he had I think 32
Those are like
saves.
that's like an order of magnitude higher than
Yeah, he had 32 saves.
yeah,
Um,
than league average at least anyway,
as
right?
a relief pitcher, he had a 4.8 WAR, which is crazy high, but still it was only 4.8, and he was a relief pitcher. It was like that year. I think it was a strike shortened season. We talked about this before in '81 in the NFL when a kicker, Mark Mosley, won the MVP award because he was the kicker for the Redskins. He only missed one field goal. That was like this time period in the early '80s when like sports writers were fascinated by kickers and closers and seeing them as extremely valuable, even though like they are, but it's not. But like um, it's they don't play enough to really.
Yeah, it's more of an automatic thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
you shouldn't notice them unless they're bad.
Yeah, this would
Right.
I think yeah, but I think kind of like if like circa 2014, 2015 Wade Davis had played in the 80s, how like he probably would have been MVP for the 2015 Royals
Yeah.
team, right? That's like
Yeah, maybe.
yeah, so given that those sports writers, but yeah, he was the MVP that year. Uh,
Yeah, in the
um,
2015 Royals, you'd think like the trio of the Royals relievers, the HDH, probably should have been like, the co MVP sort of thing for the team, right?
yeah, yeah. So Alan Trammell had 6.7 WAR, Chet Lemon 6.2, Kirk Gibson 5.1, Will Hernandez 4.3. They had a lot of guys with over four. Let go 4.3. Yes, they had a lot of uh, as WAR as a team, but it was that was an interesting. That was the first year I remember watching baseball. Um, I watched some of that '84 playoff series against the Royals on TV, and that's the first baseball I remember really watching. And then '85, when we were in first, sort of ending kindergarten, starting first grade, was like the real uh, watching of the Royals. And that was about the same time as well that the Kansas City Kings were leaving Kansas City, going
Yeah.
to Sacramento. And when I was literally little, I was a Kings fan. I liked the basketball team, but then I think my parents wanted me to be sad about the Kings and the Royals games, and I followed the Royals after that. But um, it was yeah interesting. Yeah, those 84 Tigers. So if the Rays are 30, so they have to go 36-4 to pass the Tigers through 40 games. You think they can do it?
No, I don't. I don't expect that at
You think
all.
they can come close to the 35-5?
Probably not. I mean, I'd be a little surprised if they're, up around 30 wins, but by the 40 game mark, because that just usually doesn't happen. It's just,
Yeah, 30-10
I
is
mean,
a
I mean,
750 win
they've
percentage.
been very prolific though. Like I think right now they have the number one offense and the number one defense by runs per game. So it's not a surprise that they're undefeated based on their run scoring ability and run prevention ability.
Yeah.
So if they keep that up, they're probably going to beat that record.
Yeah.
It
Right
doesn't seem
now,
likely though. They have played pretty soft teams from what I've been told. I haven't actually looked at who their opponents were, but I've heard that as a knock against them. But because it looks like they started with the Tigers, the Nationals, the A's, and now the Red Sox is who they've played so far. So
yeah, the
they
Tigers,
are,
Nationals, and A's were all supposed to be bad,
yeah, bottom of the league.
but maybe they're bad because they're playing the Rays. But like, yeah, the Red Sox are the first kind of decent team that they're playing, so we'll see what happens
They've
by the end of.
won 2 games against the Red Sox already, 1-0 and 7-2.
Okay, so they got one more game against the Red Sox probably
Yep,
on Wednesday. If they
yep.
win that game, they will pass the 1981 Oakland A's for the best for the to take sole possession of the third best start in Major League
League history.
through just starting the games. So yeah,
Well,
I
they
guess
they actually have 2 games against Boston left. So yeah, they play
okay, 2 games,
Wednesday and
4 game
then
series.
Thursday afternoon game before heading to Toronto for a 3-game series.
Yeah, so if you're curious, the that Detroit Tigers team um, started 9-0.
Yeah,
Their first loss was against the Kansas City Royals. They lost that year, that game on April 19th of 1984. April 19th is MJ's birthday. Uh, she would have been 3, I guess. But April 19th, 1984, Brett Saberhagen got the win, and Dan Quisenberry got the save. And that was actually a rescheduled game because of a rain out the previous day. So they only played a 2 game series that day. I guess they moved it to Wednesday and Thursday. Um, that game lasted a cool 2 minutes, or 2 hours, 27 minutes. Most of these games were that short until crazily um, they played a game on April 27th that lasted 5 hours and 44 minutes. How many innings do you think that game went through?
5 hours.
44 minutes.
It has to be 14 innings somewhere there.
It was 19
19
innings.
innings. Wow, man, that's fast for a.
19
You
inning
think
game.
that's like a double? That's like,
That's more than 2 games. And they
yeah,
actually lost that game to Cleveland. So one of their so that was so they went 9-0. Then they went lost to the Royals. That game went 9-1. They beat the Royals for to go 9-0. Then they lost to go 9-1. And then they lost that game. That was the next game they lost. So they were 16-2 after that 19 inning loss. But they lost that game 8-4 somehow in 19 innings. So
the
like when
19
there
inning
was
game.
yeah, so the game was tied 3-3 going into the extra innings. Then each team, the Indians and the Tigers, each scored a run in the 10th inning. No runs at all until the 19th inning. I want the Tigers had 4 errors in that game. I wonder if those errors ended up costing them
Hmm.
the win. But I'm looking at the box score now. Yeah, those errors cost them. Glenn Abbott um, finished the game. He pitched the last 5 innings, and he allowed 4 runs, none of them earned. So it was errors that cost them in
Wow,
that 19 inning game.
that's a marathon though.
That is a long game. I've never. What's the longest game you've been to?
I was at the time the longest 9 inning National League game would have been like 1996 Rockies Dodgers in Colorado. It was like a 4 hours and 50 minutes, something like that, like 9 inning game. It was like ridiculous because it was like a 13-11 game with a bunch of home runs, a bunch of walks, a lot of pitching
Oh,
changes.
wow.
It was like, yeah, 4.5, 5 hours, somewhere in that area for a 9 inning game. I think that's the longest game I've been to in time. Longest 9 inning game, at least anyway.
That's long.
Uh,
I don't remember the longest night in
and then
time.
I think I've been to like a 13 inning game somewhere in there.
I went to a 16 inning game when I was a kid. I
Yeah.
remember it was against the Rangers. Um, but I was looking more deeply into the box score and how they scored. In the ninth inning, it was tied 4-4, and then two errors in a row were committed by the pitcher on sacrifice bunts, and then on the third consecutive batter, there was an error uh, by um, the left fielder. So,
Wow.
and one of my favorite players all time was playing for the Indians that year. Actually, several of my favorite players were playing for the Indians at that point. People who lasted forever in baseball. One of them was Julio Franco.
Yeah.
What year did Julio Franco retire? Baseball.
Uh,
Playing on that 84. Uh,
he was in like mid to late 2000s, wasn't he? Like 2008, maybe?
yeah, he was
Because he was playing
playing.
with the Braves, I think, by then, right?
He finished his career in 1990. I mean, in 2007. You were right. He finished his career with the Mets and the Braves. He played for the Braves mostly. He
Yeah.
was,
Oh, he actually
and
went
then
to the
he
Braves to
split.
finish it.
Yeah, so he was 48 years old when he
Yeah,
retired. That is old. And I
that's
remember
pretty
those.
good there. I think he was still okay.
Yeah,
He hit 222 as a 48-year-old.
yeah, that's not bad. He hit he hit 309 as a 45-year old. He
Yeah, that's
was
not bad.
309 with a 378 on base percentage as a 45-year-old for the
Yeah.
Braves in 2004. That's incredible.
So is he the oldest player to hit a home run then? Because he
Oh,
did hit a home run
yeah, I think he's even older than Huey
as a 48-year-old.
Jennings was. He had home run as a 48-year-old. I think Minnie Minoso played a long time. Uh, he always came back. So his career was technically 1946 to 1980 because he was 56 when he took at bats for the White Sox in 1980. I think he's the oldest person with a hit because he has a hit at age 52 for the White Sox. Um, his last home, but he retired for the first time at age 40. So maybe Franco is the highest. The other player who I associate as being extremely, extremely old is just the guy who looked very old, but he also played a very long time, and that is Otis Nixon,
Oh
who
yeah.
looked who looked like a mummy. I thought he was
Yeah.
so like stretched and like desiccated. He
Yep.
and I think Ron Karkovice as well both looked like mummies that had been unwrapped and were playing baseball. They always had this weird grimace, and their face was always like sort of like beef jerky. And um, I guess Otis Nixon also played for the Braves in his final year. He retired at age 40 uh, for Atlanta in 1999. So
Pretty long career though.
Ron
Also, I
Karkovice.
think like 17
Now,
years.
now I want to look up Ron Karkovice. Ron Karkovice only played 12 years in the NFL. Actually, that
Flag
picture
it.
of him, yeah, he played for the White Sox all 12 years and was serviceable, but as a catcher. But his face looked like a catcher's mitt as well. I think he probably smoked like 4 packs a day or something, and or was like lived in a wind tunnel and like had like sand blown into his face all the time. Um,
You don't know that he didn't. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know either. I looked up Ron Karkovice's mummy and I can't find anything. I
Nothing particular came up.
looked up Otis Nixon mummy.
Ron Karkovice homered in his final game.
Someone else mentioned that Otis Nixon looked like a mummy. I think I did that in as well in a very old. It's probably not there anymore. A very old Royals Review article that I wrote, parody,
Yeah,
and I mentioned Otis Nixon. It was sort of an Onion article style of, but I mentioned that Otis Nixon was a mummy. But somebody else also I see on the interweb also believed that.
it would be funny if it was your article that you found, and the somebody else you're quoting is also you.
I wish. Let's see. Um, oh, it's actually um, Crow on Mr. Science Theater 3000. One of the robots made the comment that a mummy looks like Otis. A mummy in a movie looks like Otis Nixon.
Oh, so the other way around.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe I don't think that's where I've heard it. I don't think I heard them. I think we were. I think Crow the robot and I just. It was like Leibniz and Newton each arriving independently at calculus, and I and uh, Crow from Mystery Science Theater 3000 each arrived independently at the conclusion that Otis Nixon looked like a mummy.
Must be.
Yeah, but I can't find that on. I guess I could have to look through the Royals Review archives, but I couldn't find it when I searched it. Um, let's see. No,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't think
Yeah, I'm
it's.
not finding
I
anything.
I don't think it's archived anymore in the new Royals because I think Royals Review is switched
Hosts. And so they've given
hosts,
up all
and
their old.
they don't have like circa 2009. Uh,
I didn't know did you write like fan articles on
I did. I wrote
with fan
one,
shots?
and I commented a lot back in the time when the Royals were terrible.
Yeah.
And I wrote that fan shot. It got some good publicity, but it was yeah, Royals yeah, it was yeah, it has vanished. I hope maybe if I look more maybe I can find it. But um
Yeah.
that, but anyway,
You probably have it on some old flash drive.
yeah, I have it probably on some old computer that I
Yeah.
desktop or something somewhere. I probably at one point had it in my Gmail, and I think I archived a lot of it. I don't know where it is. So,
Hmm.
but anyway, it's perhaps lost. But it involved, if I remember correctly, this was during. I don't know if you remember this when Royals backup catcher Matt Trainer was uh, a sensation. You remember that?
I don't remember him really being a sensation, but
You remember he was married to Olympic beach volleyball multiple gold medalist Misty May Trainer,
yes.
and this was because Matt Trainer was doing so well. The Royals wanted to find, and Misty May Trainer was doing so well. The Royals wanted to find another trainer to bring back to their team, and so they unearthed uh, former Pittsburgh Pirates Hall of Famer Pie Trainer,
Oh.
who'd been long dead, and through some sort of you know Frankenstein-esque experimentation, and they brought back Pie Trainer, and he was this kind of wraith of a figure, but he did very very well for the Royals. But he, yeah, that article has been lost. Um, it had some
It's
good
somewhere. You'll find it.
somewhere. Yeah,
It'll be recovered somewhere eventually, right? We'll find it.
yeah. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it was once on. I remember I had searched for it a few years ago, and I found it. So I don't.
Yeah,
It's
it's somewhere, Mike.
okay. Well, we'll have to look for it. It's a wonderful piece of onion-esque sports writing,
Yeah.
and this was so anyway. But I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about baseball right now.
Well,
I
Tampa's off to their potentially epic start. The Royals are not off to a great start, but not the worst scenario. It seems like they are heating up a bit. We'll have to see what happens with them.
you call if you call 0-3 in their last 3 games, heating up.
Well, I mean, the Bats are they're scoring some more runs. Like they've been shut out, I think, 3 of their first 7 games, and then
I guess they're 2-3 in their
3 of the first
last 5.
5 games, even I think actually. So, but they have not been shut out since then. So that's a positive. They've been scoring a
Yeah,
few more runs. They've lost a few games, but kind of for their own mistakes. That hopefully they'll work those kinds of things out, like who should be pitching when and stuff like that. Um, some of those roles haven't quite been established yet. I don't think so. We'll have to see how things shake out. It does seem like Chapman may be taking over as the closer sooner rather than later, would be my guess. After today's performance from who is the current team closer, I guess. Uh he did not have a great performance today. Scott Barlow.
it's too bad.
Um,
I had a good line that I remembered from that Pie Train article. I think it I think Tony Muser might have been the manager still, or somebody. Um, uh, no, probably would have been not Tony Muser. It would have been what's his name? The first manager Dayton Moore, Trey Hillman. Trey Hillman was the manager.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
and he said because um, Pietrangelo was unearthed this kind of skeletal figure, and he said he liked the fire in his eye sockets, and that was the line. And I just looked up "fire in his eye sockets" in quotes. Apparently, um, the author of Percy Jackson uh, and the Lightning Thief was also he also used that term "fire in his eye sockets," but I think that may have been after my use of it. So I think my best lines are getting stolen from me by well-known media personalities
Must be.
from the future, and you but anyway, it's it's a tragedy that that article has been lost, but it's also not a tragedy, I guess, yet for the Royals. They could still come out and bounce back, but it's looking a little iffy at this point.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to the NBA playoffs, which I believe 2 of the games tonight have just concluded?
Yes, that is correct. The play-in tournament. If you maybe first of all, what do you think of this play-in tournament as compared to the like NCAA play-in games where teams play in for a certain seed? There's 4 teams competing for 2 seeds, but it's a kind of a different format.
I like it. I kind of like it. I like I in some ways it helps it devalues the regular season a little bit more because now
Yeah.
there are 10 teams in each conference that can get to the playoffs, and like there are only 30 teams in the NBA, so like 20 out of 30 teams are going to make the playoffs. But it it kind of ensures, I think, that the teams playing at the end of the season, the best teams at the end of the season are going to get into the playoffs. And it's
Mm.
but in some ways, I think it harms the top seeds because now like
They
um,
have to wait a couple extra days.
they have to wait a little extra, and they have well, I guess the extra time to rest. You would think maybe it's a little rough, get a little. There's that rust
Yeah.
line, but you can also say, well, now they're going to be playing definitely a better, hotter team as the set. Like so, like this, like the 2 seed especially, is going to be playing. Like if like somebody had sunk down as the 7 and then kind of continued to sink, they could be out of the playoffs completely.
Yeah.
And 2 other teams that were lower seed, maybe 8th seed or 9th or 10th seed, they both could move up and be uh, in that 7th spot. And it's um, I guess only the 8th seed could go to the 7th spot because the winner of the 7-8 automatically gets the 7.
Right.
So that 8th seed, it could be like it could. I guess that could help the 1 seed because the hot 8th seed is now the 7th seed. But I think it definitely hurts the 2 because it makes sure that the best team is probably going to be 7. But also it could hurt the 1 because if like that 7 or 8th seed has been fading and they continue to fade, one of those 9-10 teams that maybe was heating up at the end of the year is now going to be 8, and maybe they have a chance to upset um, the 1.
Yeah.
But I do like the NBA playoffs the best. I like that format because I think it ensures that the best team is going to win. Although
Hmm.
you could say playoff basketball and regular season basketball are different in the NBA, the way it's slowed down and like it's more physical. But I think having 7 games really in basketball really ensures that the better team is going
Yeah,
to
they
advance.
is the first round, do they play 7 game series, or do they play only, is it only a 5 game series for the first
It,
round?
it was once 5, and they moved it to 7. I don't know if they haven't moved it back to 5. I don't think.
That's what I can't remember if it went to. I'll look it up, but it is a 7 game series. Yeah.
Yeah, they moved it um, to 7, maybe 15, 20 years ago almost now.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I usually don't really pay that close attention to it until like the conference championships. So like the opening round, I don't usually watch a whole lot of anyway. But
mhm.
yeah, I usually watch most of the conference championships and then finals typically. Do you watch most of it, or you watch
No,
or not
I
really?
might watch a game here and there,
Yeah.
but I watch more of the playoffs than I do the regular season. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I tend to also lately to be like the NBA playoffs usually occur like during finals time in at school and stuff like that. It's like the end rush for the academic year. So I don't watch it quite as much. Maybe sometimes in June I watch it once some of the um, my academic duties are lighter. But
Yes.
also by that point it's summer and I'm maybe not paying attention to the basketball anymore. I'm thinking more about baseball or uh, something like that. But um, I yeah I do like the way the NBA playoffs are formatted. I think in some ways it's probably the most. In some ways it's boring if you want just upsets, but I think it showcases I think um, drama and because of the arc of a series and it's I think it's even better than baseball because I think um, baseball games in general are more random than basketball because there's
Mhm.
fewer scoring opportunities. And um, in basketball, I think you
But you
could
can get like kind of a fluky sweep in baseball,
yeah,
where you rarely would get a fluky sweep in the NBA.
yeah, especially if it's you need a 4 game sweep uh,
Mhm.
to
Well,
win.
and home court seems to matter more than home field in baseball,
Right.
typically.
Yeah, I think in baseball it depends so much on who's pitching. So if you like in the playoffs, I think it's easy, especially with the way teams get more rest during the playoffs. It's
Hmm.
it's easier for a pitching heavy team, uh, or like a
Or a
like their
team with
starter,
3 good starters.
yeah, a top heavy starting team or a team that has lots of good relievers that can get rest every
Yeah.
day, like the Royals did. Uh, like they would. It didn't matter if this starter got 3 innings or 4 innings. The relief guys could finish.
If they
And
had to go 5 starters deep, I don't think they would have done well. No,
no,
really. Yeah.
in some ways, I think they kind of signaled that new era of baseball with relievers pitching more, and maybe even the idea that a relief pitcher should start a game, um,
Mhm.
or like not going through the lineup a certain number of times. That became a really big talking point.
It's
Uh,
unfortunate that the Royals didn't continue that strategy, to the next couple of steps. They just sort of like stopped it there, and other
yeah,
teams actually had success with it, like the Rays.
yeah.
They,
I think partly that was because the Royals didn't have as much talent in the next couple of years. Uh,
oh, I don't think it's talent related. It was
well, it's also that, but I think it's because I think if they had a better bullpen and like better offense, like they did in
yeah.
2015, like they lost. I think like after 2017, especially, they lost pretty much everybody
Well,
except for
I think
Sal.
Dayton Moore made a couple of trades that I think really sunk the team in like trying to hang on for another year or two, make another run
Yeah,
with the guys they had. And if they would have started the rebuild earlier, I think they would be much further along.
yeah, but I don't. I but
But
it
they made a
makes
couple of trades of relief pitchers specifically that really gutted the bullpen.
yeah. I think they thought
And they were
they could keep
never the same after that.
manufacturing relievers the way they were.
Yeah.
Um, but it didn't quite work out. But I think the way they tried to hold on and go for it, I preferred that than oh, we won the World Series, now let's do the Marlins thing and rebuild immediately.
I didn't want to see that, but it seemed like there were certain things that they specifically like made more trades late in a season that hurt them for the long term
Yeah, I think they just
because what they didn't work out.
yeah, I think it's mainly because they didn't work out and they had
Yeah.
caught lightning in a bottle for a couple of years, and then like you really to win a World Series, not only you have to be good, but you also have to be lucky. And the Royals were lucky almost two entire postseasons. They were
Yeah.
extremely fortunate in 2014 through the LCS. Then they got a little less fortunate in the World Series and ended up losing just barely. And then they were pretty fortunate as well in the 2015 postseason, especially after slow starts against Houston, especially in the divisional series. And then they ended up kind of really
Gutting
playing
it out
well
basically.
against the Blue Jays and the Mets. Neither and both of those teams kind of crumbled uh, in those series. So I think they caught they were fortunate, and like even the even good teams don't always win the playoffs. So as like we said, baseball is a little more chaotic than some of the other
Yeah.
sports. I think it might even be more chaotic than football, even though football you only get one game um, to play. And I'm not sure. Do you think football has more upsets in the playoffs or baseball has more upsets in the playoffs?
Well, in individual games, baseball. In series, maybe even still baseball.
That's what I was thinking. Is like if you think
Yeah.
about it, like in if you like sort of prorate or expand football season, they used to play 16 games, and baseball used to still plays 162 games. So you could say like in football, each game is technically like 10 games. And
Yeah.
so if you think of each game as being 10, that means each playoff game is 10 games as
Like
well,
playing a 10-game series.
which is three more than baseball world a baseball series. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that really holds or not. But I think each in some ways, but in some ways I think because there's more scoring,
Yeah.
and I think also because
Well, there's a
it's
hierarchy of points just in how the scores are even, you know, completed, I guess, right?
yeah,
So good teams can score more frequently and more powerfully, I guess, right? The bigger scores, touchdowns rather than field goals, right? Yeah.
yeah, and and in some ways it's more coaching matchups in football than certainly in baseball. I think baseball maybe it's putting a lineup together and things like that. And there's a few in-game things, but like for the most part, it's just if your pitcher's not having a good day,
Yeah.
you're not going to do well.
Right.
Or
It's when to make that decision to make a
yeah,
change. That can sometimes
and
be a factor. Yeah.
like your maybe your quarterback won't have a good day or something like that. But I think of quarterback like if it's like Patrick Mahomes, much more like I think it's more likely that he will have a good game than even if you have like Greg Maddux on your pitching staff. And like the Braves had Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine and John Smoltz, three Hall
That's,
of Fame pitchers, and
yeah.
they never won the World. They won one World Series together.
But they
And
won. The one they won was the one that they were jerks for having won because it was against the then Cleveland Indians, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I was like, oh, they were the team from Major League is finally in the World Series, and then
and
the
they still
Braves,
don't.
who'd been there all the time, kept losing, win that one. That's the one.
Yeah, that was I guess the All Indian World Series was the Braves against the Indians.
Yeah.
Um, now
Yeah.
we have the Cleveland Guardians, and of course the Guardians have never won World Series, and we of course believe that if Cleveland had to change its name, they should have changed it to the Spiders,
Fires for sure. Yeah.
going
Missed
if they wanted to
opportunity.
be historic and tied to Cleveland. Cleveland right now, I think they are in first place in the AL Central, right? I think
Or
they're eight and four.
was it? I don't know. I closed that window already. I thought we were talking about basketball now.
I thought we were too, but I no. The Cleveland is 7-5. Twins are 7-4. So the
Yeah, I thought the Twins were in first, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Cleveland is a half game back. But anyway, basketball. Do you think any of the um, teams 7 through 10 in either conference? Now we know the Lakers won tonight against the Timberwolves, so they will be the 7 seed. And what was the other 7 8 game was tonight?
Was it Atlanta, Miami? Miami was the finished seventh in the standings, but they lost at home to Atlanta, so Atlanta now becomes the 7 seed.
Which of those two teams do you think is more dangerous? The Lakers uh,
Well,
or the Hawks?
I think it's really doesn't matter who was going to be the 7 seed in the East, because they're going to play Boston Celtics, who have an extremely good record this season. It's second best in the NBA actually, but they're both. Just happens that the best team in the NBA was also in the East, Milwaukee Bucks. So I don't think they have much of a chance. But the 2 seed in the West is Memphis Grizzlies. Will be facing the Lakers now in the first
Yeah,
round.
I also
I
uh,
expect the Lakers to win the series. Is that what I would assume?
I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers won that series either. Yeah, I think the 3 best teams this year were all in the Eastern Conference. I think the Bucks, the Celtics, and 76ers are the 3 best teams. Um,
Mm.
and they actually ended up having the 3 best records. The Nuggets were 53 and 29 for first in the Western Conference, but the 76ers were 54 and 28. They were third. But
Mm.
I think the West is, like you said, the West is deeper, I think, um, a little bit. But
But the extremes are in the East, though. I think, right? Yeah.
yeah, Pistons are the worst. The Spurs and Rockets were both bad, though, too.
Mm.
So it's interesting that all 3 Texas teams are out of the playoffs.
Did you find it amusing that Dallas missed the playoff
I kind
entirely
of did because they
after the
went
Kyrie Irving trade?
after the Kyrie Irving team, and then because they rested Luka Doncic, and like they lost this game that knocked them out of the playoffs. It was a little bit like what happened with um, the Washington football team this year when Ron Rivera lost track of what the standings were, and like they lost the game because they didn't really try to win. They thought, okay, we can win next week when we be in the playoffs, but they were actually eliminated from the playoffs because they lost and they couldn't win next week and get in. And do you remember that
Hmm. Does not.
situation? It was
It sounds like something the Redskins would do. Well, the Commanders would do.
Commanders. Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
was it was something like that. They forgot kind of, or at least Rivera, like when he was asked about stuff, he was still thinking they were in playoff contention. Uh,
Uh,
but yeah, they lost that game and they couldn't make it because they
great.
had. And so like yeah, no, you can't. I think they maybe they pulled Taylor Heineke for uh Wentz or something like that,
Oh yeah.
yeah, they lost. Yeah.
So weird.
um, so does that mean we've segued into football
I think so.
since we've broached Carson Wentz territory? It seems he hasn't signed anywhere yet. The Chiefs don't have a clear-cut backup quarterback unless you call the Shane
You
Buechele.
know, I was thinking Shane Buechele isn't the clear cut second string.
Well, he might be. He might be very talented because the Chiefs did uh, protect him last year, and all this past season by putting him on the actual 53 man roster the whole time. He was
Mm.
inactive as a healthy scratch,
That's scratch.
um, but he was not on the practice squad because they thought that somebody was going to poach him.
Mm.
I think at one point the Arizona Cardinals were going to do that, but they did. Chiefs did bring in back from the practice squad Chris Oladokun, journeyman quarterback from the college ranks, where he played for South Florida, Samford, and South Dakota State over 5 seasons. Um, he then was drafted last year in the 7th round by the Pittsburgh Steelers, cut right before the season started, and the Chiefs picked him up to be on the practice squad the whole year. So he is the other. So the Chiefs have 3 quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, in case you don't know, is the third
Oh,
is the other quarterback that the Chiefs have on their
oh,
roster.
that guy.
I would say they should give him a chance to start. I think he's proven himself to be ready to try to take the NFL by storm.
You don't think it's an open contest for number one?
Well, I guess you could say maybe Mahomes will pretend it is just to maybe get himself a little bit better.
You're thinking
But
it's he has an edge at least anyway.
yeah, I would say, well, barring if Mahomes is hurt really bad, I think one of those two might be able to take the starting job. Although we saw in the playoffs, Mahomes was hurt pretty bad, and he still was pretty good. So um,
Yeah,
he'll. I still think probably the Chiefs will bring in somebody that's a veteran to challenge Michelle unless they really like a lot of
yeah, and Bouchel.
and Michelle. Yeah, it's I don't know because I guess it was just said Carson Wentz is still out there. He might sign for pennies. I saw. I think we mentioned this. I don't know if we mentioned this on the broadcast or not, but Cam Newton is still out there and he wants to return, and he might be a player that could be a decent backup and also a third and short, fourth and short quarterback in case
Yeah,
so they could run sneaks with him. Uh, or like use him as a running back kind of and put him in the backfield with Mahomes. I think that could be fun. Uh, I don't know if he can do anything anymore, but it could be interesting. A bruising running type quarterback, but yeah, the Chiefs have been kind of an enigma this offseason. They haven't really signed too many people. They got rid of Orlando Brown, brought in Jawan Taylor to play left tackle, it seems. Andrew Wiley left, so we don't know about right tackle. They might draft a guy, or they might, just bring up Lucas Niang. But a lot of people are thinking that I don't know if you've read this that they think the Jawan Taylor exchange basically for Orlando Brown is one of the worst moves this off season. Do you agree with that? Do you see the logic in that?
I mean, you can see it in the numbers why the argument can be made because they ended up paying Taylor more than what.
Yeah, I think Taylor ends up getting 20 million a season and Brown about 16 million.
Yeah, so they spent $4 million on a guy who doesn't play the position that
He
they're
was a right
probably going
tackle.
to ask him to switch positions. So
Well,
I
Brown was
mean,
also a right tackle moving to left tackle, just like Taylor.
yeah. So I mean, it's hard to really question what the Chiefs have, done in the last several years based on the results from the last several years. Um, so it does seem a little odd. It's a little unfortunate, maybe, that they, spent more than what, they maybe could have for Brown anyway. But I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know
I
either. It
guess we'll
seems like
see what happens. But
Yeah, it
Yeah.
seems like
I think
Brown
it seems like
didn't
you
want to.
have to give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt
I think
based on their past performance, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And it seems like that Brown didn't want to play for the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs probably offered Brown this much money or a little bit more last offseason and maybe even this offseason. And Brown thought, well, I can get more someplace else. And then the Chiefs said, okay, we'll just use that money we earmarked. We'll pay this guy, Juwan Taylor. He looks like he's a better pass blocker, and we don't need a great run blocker because we have Patrick Mahomes. We just want a good pass blocker because that's where Orlando Brown kind of struggled. It was against elite defensive ends, and maybe Taylor is a little bit quicker than Brown. He's a little bit more of like a mauler run blocking tackle, and so like yeah, I don't know. I can see their logic, and yeah, I can also see maybe the conventional wisdom as well. But I yeah, like you, I tend to give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt, especially how well they've been doing and how well um, they've constructed their rosters uh, the past few years. And speaking of roster construction, um, the Chiefs have brought in another wide receiver. Um, that is Richie James, who was on the Giants roster last year. Um, do you think Brett Veach has made another uh, steal from the Giants? They already did those with Kadarius Toney. They got him for like a late third and a sixth round pick or something like that, and Toney ended up basically winning the Super Bowl for the Chiefs with his corn dog touchdown, and then also the punt return that was almost a touchdown. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, hugely important plays for the team that they may not have won without
yeah,
without his efforts. Um yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems like was it Richie James, right? Yeah.
Richie James. Yeah,
It seems like he has more return history than most of the Chiefs current core has anyway. So
yeah. I think
maybe a
Toney's a
little
decent returner, but
security blanket for
you don't want Toney out there returning unless he really maybe in
yeah.
a playoff game because he's going to get hurt. You need to wrap him the
Or
ball
maybe
around.
even Sky Moore too, because he had some, issues
Yeah,
with, handling the
several,
ball a few times.
at least three drops.
But he made some pretty important returns in the playoffs too. So it's
He did in that Bengals game.
yeah. So
Yeah.
like it seemed like by the end of the season he may have, gotten rid of that whatever mental issue that seemed to be,
Sort of the
maybe
yips.
maybe
Yeah.
is partially associated with his fumbling
Yeah.
or
It's one of those things.
miscatching at least anyway on punt returns. Yeah.
Yeah, where the Chiefs also seem to have a fairly deep set of wide receivers, like on the practice squad. They brought in this year John Ross, who is, I think he ran the fastest 40-yard dash recorded at the combine ever. I think it was like a
Yeah.
4.22 or something.
Jeez.
He was actually drafted one pick before Patrick Mahomes in the 2017 draft. He went to the Bengals and didn't
Yeah.
really perform very well ever, but the Chiefs brought him in as a kind of project. They also have Justin Ross from Clemson, who had been in as an undrafted free agent, who had a lot of weird injury history and possibly like career-ending disorders. Like his
Hmm.
spine was fused funny, and he had a broken foot. But in college, he was Clemson's by far best wide receiver, and that included uh, when he had T. Higgins on the team. So like
Well, yeah.
maybe he's like really good if he can come back. Like it's like maybe there's like these guys that the Chiefs think we have diamonds in the rough, but they also might just turn into it's Josh Gordon all over again. We thought he was really promising, but now he's in the XFL. Or we had whenever Kelvin Benjamin was brought in, or even Sammy Watkins, these kind of high draft picks that didn't really pan out. Watkins played really well in the playoffs one year for the Chiefs, but his but he was mostly injured in the regular season. He's
He
basically
never
the
seemed to. He ended up in Green Bay last year and didn't seem to gel
and
well
then
with
he
Rodgers
went to the
either.
Ravens and didn't do so that great either. He and
Yeah.
Demarcus Robinson were both actually on the Ravens, but they were both cast-offs from other teams that same season before they went to the Raiders because Demarcus Robinson signed a decent contract with the Raiders and he didn't latch on, so he went to the Ravens. And then, like you said, Sammy Watkins was with the Packers. He couldn't
joining him there
he
too.
could gel with Aaron Rodgers. Basically, nobody seems like they're able to do that
Yeah,
because Aaron Rodgers is never around. He's always, uh, doing ayahuasca or in a darkness retreat or
yeah.
talking on the Pat McAfee show, something like that.
Did you see that Mahomes hosted a get together for with the receivers like down in Texas, I guess,
I
a week
saw
or so
that.
ago?
Yeah,
But I guess it also featured a strange appearance from Trey Lance, if
Trey
any.
Lance. I heard about Trey Lance. Is he a pal of Mahomes now? And is he
I don't
gonna?
know.
Is he
But they
well?
said that was like the first time he'd been seen publicly throwing a ball in since the beginning of last season, right?
I, I
So
I think we have discussed the 49ers more than just about any team other than the Chiefs on the Morning Trek Power Hour the last several months.
yeah,
And part of that is because we're intrigued so much by the 49ers quarterback situation.
yeah,
And is this something like Lance is going to train Patrick Mahomes because he is very, very concerned about being the odd man out in San Francisco because
yeah. It
Brock
seems like it.
Purdy showed what he could do last year, and that was be a solid NFL quarterback. And then they brought in Sam Darnold, who was perhaps just as talented as Trey Lance, with probably more polish than Lance, even though both of them have had kind of checkered starts. Uh, those, Darnold was thought maybe at one point to be the number one overall pick in in the NFL draft that year, even though he wasn't the first quarterback taken. Baker Mayfield was, but he was thought to be like the person that probably should have gone number one overall.
Mhm.
Um, and Lance, the Niners spent a lot of money for him, but he hasn't been on the field. He's been kind of spotty in his performance. He's been injured. Is this maybe? Do you think it's Lance uh, trying to get some of the Mahomes magic to rub off on him?
Could be. I mean, that doesn't seem to hurt. It's interesting that he was there. Those are on different teams, but
Do you think
uh,
Do you think Mahomes invited him?
I don't know. That's what I'm not sure. If that maybe they have mutual friends or maybe they know each other. I don't know. I have no idea.
Trey Lance is from Minnesota.
Yeah.
He was born in Marshall, Minnesota. He went to North Dakota State for college. His father was a CFL player. So, like, I guess they both have pro athlete fathers. His father's CFL, Mahomes was a Major League Baseball player. I guess Mahomes' dad played for a long time in Minnesota. And so maybe there's that
Maybe.
connection,
I don't know.
Minnesota connection. I don't know. But yeah, I had never seen or associated the two of them together.
Yeah. Because
And
they didn't go to the same school. They weren't in the same conference even, right? So
yeah, and I don't even think, well, when the Chiefs played the 49ers in the Super Bowl, Lance wasn't yet on the team. And when they played the 49ers this past
on the team,
season,
but not playing in the game.
Lance was injured already. Yeah, so I don't know if
And when they played him in the regular season, also injured because they
yeah, he was
played
injured. Yeah, in the regular season. Yeah,
Garoppolo.
yeah. When they played the Super Bowl, Lance hadn't been drafted yet.
Well,
yeah, like
that's yeah,
last season when
yeah,
the Chiefs ended up rolling the 49ers in
yeah.
McCaffrey's first game, um, also a game that Brock Purdy got into late, and he almost led the Niners into a late touchdown drive, but he was intercepted in the end zone, I think.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know the connection, and that's interesting though. But I
Yeah.
think yeah, because I would have guessed, oh, maybe Lance is from Texas, and that's why or
So I thought
something.
maybe, but
Or
yeah, it turns out no. So I don't know what the connection is there. Yeah,
this here an agent?
maybe I don't know. But we talk a lot about San Francisco. We also talk a bit about Baltimore.
Mhm.
What do you think about the new move that Baltimore has made this last week, spending quite a lot of money on Odell Beckham?
Yeah, it was more money than I thought anyone would spend on him, actually. I was thinking because like I think the rumor was the Chiefs offered him like 4 or 5 million, something like that, plus incentives. This kind of Juju Smith-Schuster type contract,
Hmm.
and I think that would have been more than fair for because Beckham is older and he's coming off a lot of injuries lately. He missed the entire last season
Yeah.
injured, although maybe he could have played a little bit, but I think his demands were very high. And I think
Well,
also Beckham,
apparently.
I think yeah, currently, yeah, I think also Beckham probably wants to be the number one guy, and that's not going to be the case in Kansas City with Kelsey around. And even in the receiving room, it seems like Tony is the heir apparent as the number one wide receiver. So
Scantling,
Beckham,
Valdez Scantling, maybe too. I don't know.
yeah, they don't. The Chiefs don't really need a number one wide receiver. They just kind of
It's a committee,
it's a
really, right?
committee.
But
It
somebody has
looks
to have a leadership role, though, right?
yeah, quite frankly, it looks a lot like the Baltimore wide receiver committee as it's been. However, Mahomes has been able to thrive with in the post Tyreek Hill era, and Jackson, he did okay when he was healthy, but
Yeah, but a strong tight end, and then a kind of a lot of speedy receivers, right? That's
yeah,
but nobody's a clear like number one. I don't think in
no,
Baltimore
yeah,
as
I
a
guess
Kansas City.
maybe Duvernay, I don't know, but yes, it's going to be Beckham, I think. But that was a lot of money, 15 million for somebody who is
Was it
either maybe
18 or 16
15 million,
guaranteed?
15 million guaranteed,
Okay.
up to 18 million with incentives. So that's a
Wow.
lot. And this is also a team that's publicly kind of not paying Lamar what he wants. And does this mean
Well, and
that
he's
Jack?
doesn't seem happy or you know planning on necessarily even playing the contract that he currently has. So has
Yeah,
just
I
been
don't.
offered the non-exclusive tag for one season, and that's not the deal he wants. So it doesn't seem like he's happy. You think the Odell Beckham Jr. pickup makes him happier, or do you think he is still looking around?
I think it. I think both. I think it makes him a little happier, but I think also he's going to be looking around because he wants to get paid. I think that's more important than anything. I think he feels his um, like he has been insulted by the league, and they're not offering him enough money. I think partly they are not offering him very much money is because he does not have an agent negotiating for him. This is
Yeah,
something that's a big problem uh, and it's like it's stupid, quite frankly, not to have an agent unless you have very specific circumstances.
yeah,
I think Laramie Tunzel doesn't have an agent, but he was negotiating with the same team he had. They were going to give him a bunch of money. I think probably if he had a tough time, he would probably go hire an agent to take. Well, it's only 3% of your money, and if he can get more than 3% higher salary, that the agent will pay for himself.
right.
Not just making contacts and kind of always being in, calling people and like able to do this in a way that a player who's busy playing and working out and doing other things like that can't. But I just yeah, it's I think Jackson feels like he needs to be validated by a very high salary.
Yeah,
And he's not getting that from Baltimore at the moment. And it doesn't look like he might get it from anybody, maybe until after the draft, because I guess it's possible that one of those quarterback teams doesn't end up with one of the high draft quarterbacks and thinks,
hmm,
well, maybe we can use Jackson as either a win now kind of quarterback, or at least somebody who can, or somebody maybe who can bump us into the Super Bowl, especially if we're in the NFC, because the NFC sucks, quite frankly, when it comes to quarterback play,
yeah,
especially if Aaron Rodgers leaves at one point to go to the Jets. Again, maybe even the Jets would say, well, we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is coming. If we have Lamar Jackson, I would say Lamar Jackson is a better quarterback than even if you have to pay Lamar 50 million for 4 years or whatever, that rather than Rodgers would be 50 for 2 years, and you
yeah,
don't even know if you're going to get him for both years. I would rather have Lamar Jackson than Aaron Rodgers. But
yeah.
again, there's the injury risks and things that they with Rodgers. So I don't. It's hard to say, but like I would say that Odell Beckham is running a big risk of ending up on a team that has, you know, um,
Doesn't have the ability to get him the ball, right? If
Tyler,
if
yeah,
Lamar Jackson doesn't play,
they have Tyler Huntley as their starting quarterback, or
I
I
mean,
don't know,
he's getting paid. Like I mean, he's actually going to get $15 million next year, guaranteed, apparently,
yeah.
right? So,
But I think he wants to win too, doesn't he? Maybe he thinks, well, I already have the Super Bowl ring. I got it with
yeah.
Rams. Maybe I can just making money this year, and then next year, if I'm going to keep playing,
I
I can.
mean, maybe he thinks though too that if like the team is terrible, but he is playing well, and maybe he can coax a trade even too, and then Baltimore will be made whole. With some
Yeah,
piece that they could acquire for the remainder of Beckham's contract. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't see how this plays out in a way that's positive for Baltimore.
yeah. I think. Well, I saw recently on the New York Post that Lamar Jackson and Odell Beckham Jr. were seen at a trendy nightclub in Miami
Yeah.
together. So maybe this means that Lamar is coming back to Miami. But it's one of those things as well. Is even if Lamar Jackson is going to be there, is Beckham going to get the ball enough for his liking? Because we know what the Baltimore Ravens offense is it's run, 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 and maybe pass if if you see an
Change of
opening
pace kind of
because
play.
they're guarding the run so much. But also, like you said, they have a tight end who takes a lot of the targets. Mark Andrews is probably, which is well, he's definitely probably one of the top three tight ends uh, in the NFL. Uh, Depends on where you rank George Kittle. You might think Kittle is more talented, but he's less available here
Yeah.
than Andrews has been. But it's a similar situation than if he had come to Kansas City with Kelsey, I think. But anyway, I don't have too many other thoughts on the Ravens. Do we have any other thoughts on the NFL? The draft is coming up in Kansas City.
Hmm.
Are you going to be there?
I'll be in Kansas City, but I don't know. I'm not planning on going to the draft. It's
What
tough anyway.
what
So
day is it? The 20,
28th, something like that.
yeah, Friday through Sunday, I guess, or what, Thursday
Thursday,
through Saturday?
Thursday through Sunday, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. I think, yeah, you should go down if you want. It's not it's gonna be Union Station, right?
Yep.
I heard 300 to 600,000 people are expected.
I don't see how that's possible, but we'll see. Because that'd be
Maybe
like
it's
that'd be like that'd be like the parade turnout.
yeah, maybe it's over the course of all 3 days.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I mean, I could see, something like, you know, 10 to 20,000 people from out of town are going to be here, which is really going to fill up downtown. I think it's going to, a lot of the locals are not going to go downtown that week because they know it's going to be a mess. Because it
Yeah,
will be thousands of extra people in town that aren't normally
yeah.
there, in the downtown area.
I would guess at least one. I guess there would be at least how many how many people do you think from each NFL team go to the draft? Do you think 30 people from,
Yes, I
say,
mean,
the
it
the
probably
Bears
is. Yeah,
would
25,
go
30
to
people
the
from every team, I would guess.
draft at least? Um, so that would take that's like 1,000 people right there is just team
Yeah,
personnel.
but
Uh,
then media,
in media, probably the same number.
maybe more actually. I don't know. I mean, however, I mean, the crews themselves are fairly large for
Maybe
how
the
many.
broadcast crews, and then they have like 19 guys at that table. That
Yeah, just
80.
just on the broadcast booth itself is going to be at least 20, 30 people, right?
Yeah, they
Just
keep
right
making that
right in a row.
they make that table bigger and bigger, like on the analysts
Yeah.
like those guys offer no insight whatsoever. It seems like it's like, okay, let's have Coach Cower. Now let's have this other. Let's have for some reason
Yeah.
we will have both Phil Simms and Boomer Esiason, each of which is like we need another
Can you tell
1980s.
which one's which just by
Well,
glancing at them?
I can, but like we need another 1980s extremely blonde quarterback. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's yeah, it's kind of um and that's like, we need, James Brown, the other James Brown,
Not
and
that
then
James Brown.
the Fox hires Kurt Menefee, who looks sort of like a young James Brown. Like everybody, like, and James Brown looks sort of like a black Chris Berman, I think. And they have that same build. Like it's like they're all like the same kind of people, and I don't know exactly
Yeah,
how they uh, fit in or what they offer.
they
But
fill the role based on the personality of the guy on another network. Is that what it is?
that seems like the easiest job in the world, though.
Yeah,
I guess you have to be a famous player to get that job of Terry Bradshaw or
yeah,
Michael Strahan or like those, like it's like,
yeah.
they have bubbly kind of fun personalities, but like,
Charismatic, at least middling player, right? You
yeah,
don't
but like
have to be
Tony
the best player, but
yeah, but Tony Gonzalez is his analyst and analysis is bad, but he was a good player and he's sort of attractive in that kind of Rick Fox kind of way that he was in basketball. Remember him?
yeah,
Uh, he was always sort of this heart. He was always seen as like this kind of heartthrob when he was guest starring on like TV shows and
yeah.
stuff.
I think he still
Um,
does some of that stuff,
yeah, yeah,
TV movies stuff. Yeah,
because of his sort of rugged, multi-ethnic good looks, and like Dwayne, it's like Dwayne Johnson is the pinnacle of that group. That Rick Fox and Tony Gonzalez and I don't know who else was trying to get into that group. I used to, yeah, but anyway, but then sometimes there's the attractive female sportscaster, uh, but lately it's been good because some of the women it seems like have been hired for their analytical skills. I think Mina Kimes is pretty good on ESPN,
hmm
and some of the other NFL Network has some like it's in some ways it's diversified, but for I guess for but it's still it's kind of players with mediocre analytical skills that have become
yeah.
like the main guys for some reason, and I don't know if that really brings in people or not, but like LaShawn McCoy is on like his Fox Sports show now. Have you seen
Really?
that? Yeah,
No.
he's an analyst and he's not good, but he's
Is this specifically for draft analysis or just
no, it's like one of those
sports analysis general?
around the horn kind of
Oh, okay.
table shouting kind of shows.
Yeah.
It's on
But do
Fox
you
Sports.
enjoy draft coverage, or do you find it mostly worthless to you?
I kind of like it just so I can know because like especially as I follow college football a little bit less,
Yeah.
I like to know maybe who some of the good players are coming out,
Yeah.
and so I find it informative. And I actually will watch some of the draft probably. I just kind of have it on the background. I like to see who the Chiefs pick, and
See,
if I've heard,
that's what it comes down to is I think people are interested in the team in the getting to know the players that the team drafts. But before the draft, it's totally irrelevant what they talk about for like hundreds of hours of lead up. It doesn't matter who any of those guys are to you until they get actually signed to your team. Does it matter even the slightest amount, though,
I
right?
guess if you play fantasy football, you want to know who the you guys in the league are.
Well, you're talking about who your 12th to 15th round picks are going to be.
Yeah. Also, I guess maybe if you follow a college team, like you want to, might want to see what the Arkansas guys are like, or what the you might see what the
Yeah,
Iowa State guys, or something if they go to a person. But I kind of like, I don't know, I find it interesting. I like the statistical stuff, and like it's boring and kind of dumb a lot of times. And Mel Kiper, I don't think knows what he's talking about usually, but like it's
do you
I don't
like
know.
set a reminder to check out Kuiper's draft 3.0?
I don't really listen to those, but I kind of listen to Topic Street Talk on the TV or whatever. But like, it doesn't really.
No.
It doesn't. I don't know. It's just hard. But I watch football because it's on, and
Yeah,
it's part of the watching football. So I guess I do watch more of it, but I don't find
yeah.
like I don't. I guess I find it more interesting than you find it, but I don't.
For
It's
me, pre-draft coverage is the absolute bottom of the barrel for useful information. In the course of sports in an entire season, it is the worst time of the
I guess also because you think, oh, I really like this player, but at best, there's a 1 in 32 chance that you're going to end up with a
Yeah,
player
so I mean,
on your team. So
it's like
maybe,
every time you're interested in somebody, it's like a lottery pick, or
yeah.
like, I mean, you may as well, yeah, just buy a lottery ticket because like you
Hmm.
better chances of winning something there than picking the guy that you think they're going to pick, that your team's
Hmm.
going to pick, right?
Yeah, I guess maybe also if you're really into betting, you can bet on the draft.
You can't.
And
Why would you want to?
hey, if you think like you have an edge, like that's why you bet on it, right? Because you think you can make money off of it, and you can beat the squares, beat the rubes, and I can tell that the Chiefs are going to draft this guy. Or like maybe five six picks ahead, you can make your bet and say the Chiefs are going to pick this guy. I think there
No,
is more betting than there used to be on the draft. So um, maybe we could look into that next week or the week after about draft betting because we didn't make any bets this week.
yeah.
Um, I don't know if I don't think
We
I
can
don't
we
know.
can take a look at it, but it's going to be a hard pass for me for betting on the draft.
We can bet the NBA finals or something, but that's not
I'd
as
take that.
interesting
I'll
either.
go with that one.
Okay, we can do that. Since you think we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, but you see, not only is NFL draft pre-draft coverage
Talking about the
uninteresting.
draft is one thing, but like
So
speculation about like individual players,
what
where
about
they're going to get,
talking
less of it.
about talking about the draft? Is that somehow lower even, or is it
It's
more interesting somehow
more interesting than the actual draft pre-draft analysis.
because it's got this kind of meta
Yeah,
coverage, or it's
and
because
you're talking
we're
about a
talking.
concept, which is like somewhat you know rational at least anyway. But
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
mock drafts, and I mean
yeah,
ESPN
a
spends
lot of time.
hundreds of hours on mock drafts that are not valuable anyway. I don't care. I'd rather talk
You
about
don't want to see
golf,
Todd
and I
McShay's
don't want to talk about golf much.
draft 3.0, or maybe his draft 3.5 that has a new trade, and then compare that with Mel Kiper's latest picks. But then also, go to the NFL Network and see what their Mike
No, let's
Mayock
not do that.
say that is he back on the NFL Network now that he's not the Raiders GM anymore? I don't know. Um,
No idea.
but maybe we can leave this draft talk talk until
Yes.
now we're starting to get into draft talk,
Yes.
since we're talking about ourselves talking about
Pre-draft
what we
coverage.
talk about the draft. So we're,
Yes.
we're really into the through the looking glass now. But I think before we get into a final fifth dimension of talking about the NFL draft, or talking about those who talk about the NFL draft, should we wrap up this week's episode of the
Yeah.
Morning Hour?
Yes, I think so.
I think it's time to end, unfortunately, for this week. But we will be back again next week via one of our many. You can access us via one of our many conveyances and vehicles of podcast talk, video coverage, and we thank you again for listening and sticking around with us. You might see that we're more incoherent than normal because we're finishing this segment at 2:22 right now a.m. Eastern time, which is where I am, 1:22 Central time. So we're both really burning the midnight oil here, and
Post midnight oil.
post midnight oil. We are into the early morning. Well, luckily the days are getting longer, so our oil supply, if we had it, uh, if we kept it consistent, we'd be able to last the night more easily because of uh, the increasing daylight hours. But I digress, as usual. Dr. Scaff digresses, as usual. But um, we will see you again. I, of course, am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and subscribe to our podcast or YouTube channel. And as always, enjoy your sporting weekends. and we will return next week with even more exciting insights and anecdotes on, decades old baseball teams and uh, you the incongruities and intricacies of NFL draft coverage, just to irritate Dr. Scaff. But until then, we'll wish you a good day.